الله أكبر الله أكبر.
وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this powerful, divine, beautiful call. O you who have attained faith, be Allah conscious. Have awe and reverence in your hearts for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as is worthy of who He is, as is worthy of His glory and of His majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala, and die not except in a state of Islam. We do not have a choice about when to die nor where to die, but we do have a choice about how to die. فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And therefore, says Allah Azza wa Jal, what means die not except in a state of Islam, in a state of loving surrender of your minds and souls and spirits and hearts and words and deeds, all in loving surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma ja'alna minhum. Allahumma jma' qulubana alayk. Ya Allah, please help us be of those, and please collect and gather our hearts upon you. And today is the day of gathering, the day of Jumu'ah, of Jam'ah, of gathering. We gather, but we gather in a sense when we hope and desire that our hearts be gathered with one another, towards one another, but most importantly, that our hearts be collected and gathered upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And تجمع قلوبنا على الله عز وجل وأن لا تتشتت وتتفرق في شعب الدنيا وأهوائها وشهواتها ومالها وجاهها وسلطانها ورئاستها وزخرفتها وسفاسفها. That our qulub be collected upon Allah Azza wa Jal, not upon anything of this world that is fading. And we implore Allah as we come together every Jumu'ah that we do not come simply to come, but we come with that objective, spiritual objective, which is to collect our hearts upon Allah Azza wa Jal in every sense, so that my qalb and yours become fully aware of Allah Azza wa Jal and conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal, disengaged from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the day of Jumu'ah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam admonishes us to read Surah Al-Kahf, Surah of the cave. And part of what is beautiful in Jumu'ah, to help the qulub be collected upon Allah Azza wa Jal, is to recite Surah Al-Kahf, or part of Surah Al-Kahf at least, hopefully with proper reflection and proper contemplation. And part of what is beautiful in that Surah Al-Kahf, the story of the young people of the Kahf, a youth, says Allah Azza wa Jal, whom He immortalized by keeping mention of them in His revelation subhanahu wa ta'ala. That there are youth who, despite the odds in their society, despite the difficulties in their society, despite the aristocracy of which they were themselves members, and an aristocracy fully focused on dunya and on power and on wealth and on anything that they conceive and perceive of as leading to that, but Allah Azza wa Jal, but God. But they, despite the odds, despite being themselves from an aristocratic society, as many of the historians say, they indeed did what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us by pulling themselves away from that. The difficulties to do that are enormous, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically, and more. And they did that. They pulled themselves away from that. They skinned themselves out of that. So Allah says to us about them, وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And as you pulled yourselves away from them, as you disconnected from them, the people, your people, and what they worshipped besides God, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You disengaged, you did that, then the reward is فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ. Then go find refuge in the kahf, in the cave. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ. Your Lord will spread for you of His merciful love, or loving mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. You read that. We must read that every Jumu'ah. We should rather read that every Jumu'ah. What is it telling you and me? When you, wherever you are, whatever your function is, whatever your responsibility is, man or woman, seeker of Allah Azza wa Jal, seeker of God, seeker of the divine subhanahu wa ta'ala, اعتزل بقلبك غير الله. اعتزل بقلبك ما سوى الله. With your heart, pull away with your heart inside of you from other than Allah Azza wa Jal. When you strive to do that, and that's not easy, when we strive to do that, when you strive to do that, young man and young woman, when you strive to pull away from the dangerous liaisons and the dangerous attractions, very luring, very attractive, be they financial or power or sexual or matters of this world, whatever they are, you pull away in your heart from that. You pull away. تعتزل ذلك وتعتزل ما يعبد من ذلك, because everything we love, everything we are attracted to is a form of ibadah in the generic sense. وَإِذْ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ. When you do that, when you empty your heart, when you empty your emotions from these suggestions and these attractions and these connections, when you do that and you strive فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ, then Allah will tell you in your qalb, come and find refuge. Come and find refuge with me. And Allah Azza wa Jal will replace what you have worked to remove from your heart of liaisons, of connections, of dangerous attractions, of attachments from other than Allah Azza wa Jal, and by Allah and for Allah and through Allah. When you strive to do that, He will fill up your qalb. He will grant you a cave in which you find refuge. Your heart becomes the refuge, the garden filled with roses. Wherever you go, it is with you. Allahu Akbar. فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ. And therefore those people who truly in their qulub يُجَرِّدُونَ قُلُوبَهُمْ مِمَّا سِوَى اللَّهِ, those who empty their hearts from other than Allah, truly they find in their hearts moments of elation, moments of delight, moments of peace and of security and of ease. Allahumma ja'alna minhum. That which no one else finds. He gives them, subhanahu wa ta'ala, sort of Jannah in this world. بما ينفخ المولى عز وجل في قلوبهم من سكينة. On account of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instills into their hearts of inner tranquility and peace despite the odds outside. You empty and He fills up, and He gives you refuge. صح عن نبينا صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم, authentically related, that Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, i.e. that's a hadith Qudsi, يا ابن آدم تفرغ, يا ابن آدم تفرغ لعبادتي, يا ابن آدم تفرغ لعبادتي. O child of Adam, son of Adam, daughter of Adam, says Allah to you, to me, تفرغ. تفرغ على وزن تفعل in the Arabic language, which means there is a notion of struggle to empty something. In this case, yourself. He says تفرغ. Struggle to empty yourself for me, لعبادتي, for my ibadah, i.e. for me. تفرغ. It's not only find time. Yes, find time. That's of course obvious. I don't want to stop at that dimension. تفرغ is more than that. Is look into yourself and empty and disengage and detach and disconnect and remove that which attracts you and me, that which holds you and me, that to which you and me you and I are attached to, of the matters of this world, even legitimate ones, but not by Him and for Him. تفرغ لعبادتي, for my ibadah. العبادة أن يكون قلبك مخلصا لله عز وجل. Ibadah is the ibadah of the qalb, of your heart, is that your heart be totally in fullest beautiful tawheed for Allah Azza wa Jal. Your love, your will, your volition, your desire, your fear, your hope, all for Him Azza wa Jal. And that's not easy. It's easy for me to say, but we have to strive to empty, despite the odds. Allah has willed that He will set challenges for us in this life. This is the world. The challenges are there, starting within you and me, and at home with your spouse and children, and in the neighborhood and in the community and at work, and wherever you go, those challenges are there. And for you, O seeker of the divine, to strive to remove. تفرغ لعبادتي أملأ الله. You empty, I fill up, says Allah Azza wa Jal. You empty, strive to empty, don't worry, I fill up. Now He will fill up by that which I am, not by that which I am striving to remove, but that which is the opposite of that. أملأ صدرك غنى. I shall fill up your heart, your chest, yourself with richness. والغنى غنى القلب والفقر فقر القلب والعز عز القلب والذل ذل القلب. Wealth is the wealth of the hearts. Destitution is in the hearts as well. Izz, exaltation, dignity is in the heart. Humiliation, lowliness is in the heart as well, regardless of the appearances. أملأ صدرك غنى وأسد فقرك. And I shall guarantee you security from poverty. I shall guarantee you security from poverty. Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illahu. Never did a true mu'min die inside his qalb or her qalb poor. Never. Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illahu. A muwahhid of Allah Azza wa Jal, in his qalb or her qalb, muwahhid, never did he or she die in a state of poverty in his or her qalb, despite the appearances. Some of us are so externally rich, but we are so internally poor. And some of us could be so externally poor, but so internally rich. أملأ صدرك غنى وأسد فقرك وإلا تفعل ملأت يديك شغلا ولم أسد فقرك. And if you do not, if I and you and the world, if we do not strive, that is, to empty ourselves, to empty inside of us, to empty our qulub, if we don't do that, and that's our choice, we are free to choose. If we choose to keep the dangerous attractions and the attachments and the connections and not by Allah, for Allah, not by virtue, but by whims and hawa and shahawat. If we don't do that, then says Allah Azza wa Jal in this hadith Qudsi, Sahih, then I shall fill up your hands with worries. Allahu Akbar. I shall fill up your hands with worries. Today and tomorrow, and they seem never to end. Worry after worry, from home to work, back home, back to work, and the worries and the worries and the humum and the ghumum and the griefs and the anxieties and the insecurities and the restlessness. I shall fill you up with those. Shattered hearts. Shattered heart. We wished I could have only one problem to deal with. I wished my qalb with all these problems could be somehow focused. And you know what it does to have a mind, a heart scattered and shattered into so many directions and unable to focus what it does. Some people, and most of people nowadays, are like that. Wal-iyadhu billah, and may Allah forgive us and protect us and pardon us, are filled up with anxieties, with depressions, filled up with problems, regardless of power status, regardless of wealth status. And poor people could be also like that. That's a double jeopardy. Because with external poverty, there is also internal poverty. With external attraction, there is also internal attraction to other than Allah Azza wa Jal, and that's worse. هم فقر الدنيا وهم فقر القلوب إلى الدنيا والعياذ بالله ليس إلى الله. وَلَمْ أَسُدَّ فَقْرَكَ, and I shall not suffice you against poverty. If you don't, then you go ahead. But I will not guarantee you to be poor. I'm sorry, to be rich. I will not guarantee to remove poverty from your life, most importantly, internally. My dear brothers and sisters, وَإِذَا اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَافِرِ. Run to the cave, my dear sister and brother. Run to the cave of Allah Azza wa Jal. Find refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Build those attachments with Him. Disconnect those attachments inside you and me that are not for Him and by Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and implore Him through dua, for no one reaches Allah Azza wa Jal without Allah. No one reaches God on account of only their own means and struggle. The struggle is necessary but never sufficient. Implore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Rabbi awsilna ilayk. Ya Rabbi tahir qulubana mimma siwak. اللهم إنا ضعفاء فقو في رضاك ضعفنا وخذ إلى الخير بنواصينا. اللهم لا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين وأصلح لنا شأننا كله. لا إله إلا أنت. اللهم ارزقنا ما تحب لا ما نحب. اللهم اصرف عنا ما تكره لا ما نكره. اللهم رضنا بقضائك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه طوبى للمستغفرين. Seek the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. What an excellent abode awaits those who often seek forgiveness from God. أستغفر الله العظيم. الحمد لله وكفى وصلى الله على عباده الذين اصطفى. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الصادق الأمين والرسول المبين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. اللهم صل عليه وعلى آله الطاهرين الطيبين وأصحابه الغر الميامين والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. My dear brothers and sisters, part of what Surah Al-Kahf that we are to recite every Jumu'ah is this. Let us read it and reflect on what it says. Let us read it and implore Allah Azza wa Jal to help us strive to actualize the powerful, beautiful, virtuous, divine, spiritual meanings that it contains. May Allah Azza wa Jal help me and you read with our hearts, not only with our minds. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help me and you indeed be in the cave of Allah Azza wa Jal. Be in the refuge of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allahumma la malja wa la manja minka illa ilayk. Oh Allah, there is no refuge away from you except to you. There is no refuge to anything, to anyone except to you. وَلَن تَجِدَ مِن دُونِهِ مُلْتَحَدًا, says Allah Azza wa Jal in the same surah. وَلَن تَجِدَ مِن دُونِهِ مُلْتَحَدًا. You will never find besides Allah Azza wa Jal any other means of refuge, of leaning towards multahada, except Allah Azza wa Jal. Everything we lean into or towards, especially emotionally and spiritually and in our hearts and minds, it will always fail us. Always. اللهم اجمع قلوبنا عليك. اللهم اجعلنا نعبدك كأننا نراك. اللهم اجعلنا نعبدك كأننا نراك. اللهم طهر قلوبنا مما سواك. اللهم أقمنا بصدق العبودية بين يديك. اللهم ارحم موتانا واشف مرضانا. اللهم رد المسلمين إليك ردا جميلا، آمنين هادين مهديين غير ضالين ولا مضلين لا مبدلين ولا مغيرين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين. اللهم فرج كروب إخواننا المكروبين والمظلومين في كل مكان. اللهم إنا نجعلك في نحور الظالمين ونعوذ بك من شرورهم حيث كانوا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من أن نظلم أو نظلم، ونعوذ بك من أن نضل أو نضل أو نزل أو نزل أو نجهل أو يجهل علينا برحمتك يا بر يا رحيم يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا. اللهم ألف بين قلوبنا على محبتك وطاعتك يا بر يا رحيم. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم. قوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله.